Hi, everybody. So let's talk about this full moon in Virgo that is happening in, a little over 12 hours. So I'm going to try and squeeze in a certain amount of information here. Well, I always do that. I'm not sure why I said that, but that's what I felt like saying, so I'm saying that. Anyway, let me just keep going. The sun is in Pisces, along with Neptune and Jupiter, and the moon is in Virgo. The sun and the moon are opposite each other, hence the full moon. My last video that I did was about the Sun conjunct Neptune, and that remains an important influence on this full moon because on the way to becoming full, the moon will oppose Neptune. Now, I always typically look at approaching aspects as opposed to separating aspects. But with a full moon, because so much of the energy of a full moon is prior to the full moon, 48 to 72 hours prior, I pay attention to what is developing, what is brewing, where things are going. So while the opposition to Neptune technically happens before the full moon, it's extremely relevant to this moon. And the two other transits that are so interesting that this full moon makes are, one, it trines Pluto in Capricorn, and the second, it trines the North Node in Taurus. Now, those of you who've been following my videos and been following the astrology know that the sign of Capricorn has seen a lot of action recently as up to March the 3rd and March the 6th, when Venus and Mars conjuncted Pluto on March the 3rd and then moved into Aquarius on March the 6th, and frankly, since November, when the personal planets Venus and then Mercury came into Capricorn, and then Venus was retrograde here in mid-December to the end of Jan, and then Mercury was retrograde for part of its retrograde cycle in January and early February. So a lot of evaluation and a lot of setup for continued transformation in the sign of Capricorn. So there's something about, so the full moon makes one, I'll use the word, I want to use the word upsetting opposition to Neptune. It's not going to be upsetting for everyone, but even if it's positive, it upsets. You know what? This is a full moon of, this is a transformational full moon. At the same time, as I've mentioned to you guys before, the week before March the 15th and after March the 15th are really important because they're 2 months before the Scorpio eclipse on May the 15th. And whatever's happening now is going to expand, develop, seek some sort of resolution as we head to that eclipse. And it's an eclipse of release. So either you're releasing an actual relationship or something physical, or else you're releasing an old way of being. There's something there that has outworn its purpose. That is a subconscious way of operating, the release of which is really going to help you focus on the Taurus part of your chart, or where the eclipses are asking you to spend your energy. And so there's something very transformational about this full moon, even though it is a normal full moon. And the full moon opposite Neptune, the Neptune opposition points to, for a lot of people, shady business. Now, with Neptune, let me just cover the non-shady bits first. It could be something creative. You could be inspired. You could be in connection or contact with your muses. It could be something highly romantic in an extremely sensual way, where the reality of the personality and the compatibility doesn't matter. The connection, which could very well have a physical component to it, is just kind of magical and otherworldly. You could have, and there's something about this that also goes all the way back potentially to 2014, 15, 16, when we had the eclipses of release transiting Pisces at that time. And the sign of Pisces, as I mentioned in my last video, remains active into 2025, even early 2026, because Saturn comes into Pisces in March 2023 for its kind of usual 2.5-year stay. And that produces a kind of reckoning time, a final summation, a final dotting of the I and crossing the T in this part of the chart. With the opposition to Neptune, it could very well be that because this is a full moon that is in Virgo, and Virgo is used by ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is in Pisces, and not at its clearest, it could very well be that a lot of what is operating intuitively. It could be that there are certain things that are happening on the surface, but the real knowing is internal, and that this Neptunian influence, whether it is sensual, spiritual, whether it is charitable, compassionate, or deceptive. Sometimes deception doesn't have to be an out and out backstabbing robbery. Sometimes it can be well meaning, but there's something about the Virgo full moon and the sign of Virgo that really kind of puts us into the space of independence versus codependency. It's not Taurus and Scorpio archetypally, but Virgo and with Pisces, there's a lot of emphasis on dissolution and taking the high road and contemplating loss and dissolving boundaries and focusing on love and compassion. Whereas with Virgo, it's much more about me, my schedule, my reality, what I'm trying to construct, and somewhere that opposition, while it's not quite as pointed and strong as it would be on the Scorpio-Taurus axis, is still very present. That said, the eclipses are taking place in Taurus and Scorpio. We are 2 months before a Scorpio eclipse, and we are trining the Taurus eclipse. So somewhere, issues related to your efforts and boundaries versus others, whether it is romantic or sensual or charitable or dealing with some sort of murky business, and is somehow emphasized. The word self-esteem comes to mind, and what that means to you at this time. And it's still, in some respects, an easier full moon energetically than the one 4 weeks ago in Leo, where it could be that some of the events or things that were developing might have been maybe more exciting. And as I said at that time, those who were connected to their strategy and their natal North Node strategy and were in alignment would have been able to avail of those opportunities. But for others, there could have been valuable and important lessons that needed to be learned that pointed to what the right strategy is for you. And it could very well be that at this full moon, which is dealing with a Neptune opposition, but also opportunity, with this trine to the North Node and a trine to Pluto, a push towards this transformation that Spirit wants, that the universe wants, a transformation in the Capricorn part of your chart that will support the developments that are requested by Spirit in the Taurus part of your chart. So there could be an opportunity that comes up or opportunities that come up, and you might find that you are more available because it's not a square and a trine, more in the flow, more harmonious with how to make that happen. Okay? And how to avail of that opportunity. At the same time, the opposition to Neptune may give you some sort of intuitive insight or awareness into a certain amount of murky business that goes back a while. And so that brings up the question, what do I do? Now, with the Neptune opposition, the biggest thing I want to convey to you is that it's not over. It's going to feel like it's over because with the full moon things are heightened. But I want to tell you that in a few weeks, Venus will come into Pisces, but more importantly, Mars will come into Pisces until, I think, the middle of May. Mars is going to May the 24th. Mars is going to remain, I'm pretty sure. Mars is going, you can always Google those dates, and I'll clarify it in my next video. I don't want to stop the recording because I'm not going to stop myself now. Bottom line is, whatever it is that is attracting your attention with this full moon in Virgo, looking across at the Sun and Neptune, and aware of the fact that Jupiter is creating a new 12 to 13 year cycle here, and Mercury is here, so kind of attempts at clear communication, but reading between the lines is providing a certain amount of information. whatever this is might feel like it's reaching some sort of culmination, but there is further activity that is going to come into this part of the chart all the way up to May. And the Pisces part of your chart supports, as in flow, with the Scorpio part of the chart where something needs to be released. So whatever's going on with this, whatever's going on, the week before and after March the 15th absolutely has a link to that May the 15th Scorpio eclipse. And it could be that as you head towards that Scorpio eclipse, there are more developments that are going to come out of whatever is cresting at this full moon. So what does all this mean? It essentially means two things. One, there may be greater clarity or intuitive awareness or an inner knowing that is very supported at present around some sort of Neptunian activity that has been going on perhaps since even 2014, 15, 16 in the part of the chart where Pisces sit, the houses occupies in your chart, and what that house stands for. It could be deceptive, it could be romantic, but even if it's romantic, it could be something like somehow getting in touch with someone you shouldn't be getting in touch with whom there was just this very Neptunian, watery, sensual, spiritual connection. Okay? It could be that on the axis of Virgo and Pisces, for some people, this has whether it is the same issue or a separate issue, there's also the energy of really potentially grounding something and approaching it in a very grounded, constructive way around furthering your dreams or making something real and concrete or availing of an opportunity that supports the Taurus part of your chart and where that sits, and transformation in the Capricorn part of your chart and where that sits. Remember, there's an eclipse of leaning into the Taurus part of your chart that this full moon is trining, and there's the eclipse of release in the Scorpio part of your chart where the Sun and Neptune and all this Pisces energy is going to support the release of. The release process is not going to be easy, and with Jupiter and Pisces, Jupiter is absolutely you are shedding an old skin. And that process, if you've ever seen a video or seen a snake kind of shed its old skin, you know what that's effort. That's a lot of writhing. So with the Pisces and the Scorpio part of your chart, that energy is absolutely active. At the same time, so it could be dealing with things that are nebulous and painful and challenging and moving towards releasing something, and that process, as it always is not necessarily the most comfortable, but there could be a strong intuitive component to it. In addition to that, at around the time of this full moon, there's also something that is pushing you forward, where the Capricorn part of your chart needs to transform in order to support the Taurus part of your chart and where that wants to go. What are the other aspects that are being formed around this full moon? It's also, I'll say one more thing. The chart is ruled by Mercury. Mercury's in Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. And both of them are in Pisces, in the signs that they rule. And it has been a long time since we've had a lunation chart, a new moon or a full moon chart that hasn't been influenced by Saturn and Uranus and Venus and that loop that has been going on. With Jupiter and Neptune dispositing this chart, absolutely, there is a shedding of an old skin around some sort of Neptunian issues that have been going on in this part of the chart. And you know what I mean by Neptunian in its higher form. So it depends on where Pisces sits in your chart. Are you resolving to move towards a musical career or a more charitable career? Are you sort of embodying kind of compassionate humanitarian archetypes, sort of like a Mother Teresa sense or an Elizabeth Taylor with the HIV sense, something that's sort of full of a kind of connection and a love and a dissolving of boundaries? Are you dealing with something spiritual? Are you dealing with something romantic that could be both exalted, but could also be a little bit, sometimes those kinds of connections have a murkiness to them. They might make you feel really exalted. And this is where then we start to get into those slightly more deceptive themes. On its low form, depending on where Pisces sits in your chart, there could be loss or theft or trespassing or usurping or manipulation or gaslighting. So, and the way to deal with it is going to be a lot with Mercury in Pisces. You're going to find that it's not direct. There's something indirect about it. Maybe passive, highly intuitive. And then, of course, we're talking about the support for something else that keeps you moving in the direction you need to move into. Whatever it is that this Pisces Neptunian thing is highlighting may also give you clues about what it is that needs to be released over the next 2 months' time. And do not think that whatever's coming up around this full moon is done over the next 2 months or so. It will continue to, from here, it will continue to develop and grow. Okay, it may not necessarily develop and grow in ways that are easy, but if you're shedding that old skin, the process of shedding that old skin and moving towards that Taurian direction has started. You know, the Taurian eclipse energies made themselves known between September and November of last year, and I said at the time, and I will maintain that that energy could not get kickstarted till February, March, and April of this year, until we were done with the Venus and Mercury retrogrades that happened in December and January. And here we are. And now we are into these new eclipses. Now, the other aspects around this time, Mercury conjuncting Jupiter in Pisces, again emphasizing this theme of creating a new beginning, and with Jupiter always an ending in the Piscean part of your chart. Same theme. Venus and Mars square Uranus, so we're not out of the Aquarius-Taurus square yet. So opportunity and sort of actually making things happen in the Aquarius part of the chart are necessary to achieve the kind of liberation and independence that are needed in the Taurus part of your chart. And Saturn squares the North Node. So while the full moon trines the North Node, Saturn's getting ready to square the North Node in Taurus. So becomes really the Aquarian part of your chart and the Taurian part of your chart, and the codependency, again with Saturn remaining grounded, acting with integrity, acting with a love and respect for your potential, not falling into patterns and boundaries that have been going on for the past 28 years or so that are not in your highest good or highest favor. All of those things are going to continue to become really important. And if you know where Saturn sits in your chart, where Aquarius sits in your chart, and where Taurus sits in your chart, you'll understand the codependency between those and the importance to stick to the straight and the narrow and to show up in the Aquarius part of your chart while you continue to be tested there till March 2023. Okay? If there are opportunities that are coming around that time, celebrate it. Celebrate the fact that you're moving in a certain direction, and acknowledge that you may have to contend with something that is asking to be released over the next 2 months as well. That's going to help you move in that direction, but you may really feel compelled to put certain things in the Piscean part of your chart to bed. And once the Mars transit in Pisces strikes me as really important, because while Mars is not thrilled to be in Pisces, you know, planets that want clarity and directness of action are not, Pisces is not that type of sign. It's not a sign that is weak. It is an extreme, if you've ever dealt with someone who's got a strong Pisces, you know that chances are that they will find a way to gain the upper hand. Part of the thing that gives Pisces a weak perception is because things are done indirectly. Like fish, you can never get a hold of them, but that doesn't mean that they do not prevail. And that doesn't mean that they do not gain the upper hand. And that doesn't mean that they do not succeed. In fact, there can be such an intuitive awareness and such an intelligence that is often working in this sign that they may know you know, we think that people who argue and fight and are direct are strong. With Pisces, there's just a kind of I'm going to just slip out of these shackles and I will still end up on top. So whatever those energies are, you may still find that you are feeling like you're going to want to put them to bed. Just know that you have time. Don't ignore what is going on with this full moon in Pisces when it comes to that sort of shady, murky business. If you feel like something is off, it probably is. And it probably goes back to 2014, 15, 16. And it's probably been developing. And there's more to come. But a lot of what is more to come depends on the actions that you choose to take and where it is that you choose to, putting your weight behind your own efforts and your own independence are favored in the astrology of this time. And merging with others and codependency and enmeshments, generally speaking, those signs are being renewed, which also means that something is looking to be ended. An important, and I would say overall, an auspicious full moon, even though there is a snakeskin shedding component to it that is unlikely to be discomfort-free or pain-free. Okay? If you liked it, this video, like it, comment on it, share it. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon. Whenever I do new videos, I'll notify you, and we will leave it at that. Thank you.